We're going to officially call the school board workshop to order Tuesday, February 13th, 2024 at 2:02 p.m. All righty, Mr. Superintendent.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And I know the board members asked that we have a little conversation, a little workshop on a couple of issues that have come up on our district and school attendance, and also some discipline policies and some issues surrounding discipline. And I know there's an article that came out recently talking about Palatka having the highest rate of chronic absenteeism, 21 days and over. So we want to address that today. I mean, that's obviously something that concerns us all.
Yes.
If you're not at school, you can't learn, you know. So the other thing was just about our discipline, and, you know, a lot of the stuff's been going on in our community. We just want to talk about that, how that has impacted or not impacted what goes on at school. So this is a conversation, and I want to credit our staff working, preparing the presentation, providing data and everything. I think you'll find it very informative. Let me just introduce our panel today. Of course, Laura France has worked very hard on a lot of the, finding the data for us and helping prepare. We have our three high school principals, traditional high school principals: Kathy Oyster, Palatka High; Amber Simons from Interlaken Junior Senior High; and Tim Adams from Crescent City Junior Senior High. And over here, of course, Mr. Bowling, Thomas Bowling, Associate Superintendent. He's over operations, so a lot of this falls under his purview. And Diana Drew and Randy Hestrom, our co-student services directors for the time being, have really worked hard and met several times in preparing this data. And then I'm very pleased to have our good friend and neighbor, Judge Anne-Marie Janescu. So thank you so much for being here, and she's going to provide some information for them or answer questions about what's going on as far as truancy and any other matters about our juveniles. So with that said, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and lead off with Laura France.
We're ready.
And by the way, we've kind of divided up with attendance and discipline, tried to split it in half so we can go both topics justice. So Susan's going to keep a timer, and I think it's 37 minutes per. So just as a general guide. So Laura, go ahead.
All right, so I'm actually just going to join and talk about attendance for a little bit and be able to answer any questions. We felt like it would be really good to come to the board today with some data.
Laura, can you get that mic a little closer? It's not,
Yes,
not
sir.
picking you up.
I can. All right. All right. So Dr. Surrency alluded to the fact that on January 11th, there was a news article in Palm Beach. It was about absenteeism in Florida being the highest it's been in years. And that arrow is Putnam County. We were at the top of the list with the highest absentee rate in the state of Florida at this time. And this was from the 22 school year. Just to briefly let you understand how absenteeism is determined, attendance is actually based in Florida statute. It is counted for students that are 6 years old, so kindergarten attendance is not mandatory until you are 6. And after the age of 16, mandatory compulsory attendance is not mandatory also. With a parent's signature, you can be signed out of school, okay? And so Florida statutes actually governs what is attendance as far as like the age is, but board policy is actually what gives us our attendance policy. Every district is different. They can come up with their own policy for attendance. Ours is, and you can get this later, and these are linked for you at the very bottom of policy 5200. It is that attendance is 50% of the school day to be counted present. So the data was pretty bad, and we came back, and the first thing I noticed and what I wanted to do is look at the quality of our data. Are we sending the right stuff to the state of Florida? So actually, January 12th, our data department started really digging in to make sure that we are sending the right data to the state. Is that right? Is that information current? And what we decided after we looked at it, and it took weeks to kind of go back and ensure that what we're sending is right. Our data is correct data. What we found is that throughout the state, some districts have a 30% amount of time to be present. Some people are, if you're present for a certain number of minutes, you're present for the day. Some of them are 50% of the day. So each district in the state of Florida has their own what counts as being present. I've been on the phone with a company recently, and like in Florida, in Texas and California, you just have to be present for a few minutes to be present for the day.
No state statute that governs that?
No, attendance is what we count it as. Okay, so each district creates its own what is present for the day. And so-
essentially they're comparing apples and oranges as far as this data.
Correct. So there's also two pieces to that. So first is we wanted to make sure, because the other part is a lot of the NEFAC districts that are rural were in those top percentages. I wanted to make sure that we all use the same student information system. I wanted to make sure that we weren't doing something that's coding it differently and sending it to the state. So data quality was my first concern, making sure that what we're sending is correct. And so I want to thank Stacy Owens, who really dove into the Skyward part, which is how we communicate our average daily attendance to the state. I want to thank her for all of her work that she did to make sure that we weren't set up in the computer to calculate it wrong. And I want to thank Sheila Williams and Renee Lamoureux. Her department actually collected every policy that they could find from every district about what is their attendance. And interestingly enough, some of them, they don't have the definition for what is attendance in some of their policies. So that kind of starts with how is attendance determined. In Putnam County, you must be present 50% of the day to be counted as present. Okay. So what that means is actually what happens is in secondary schools, they take it every period of the day. In elementary schools, you take it at the very beginning. And for that data quality part is our data clerks actually call, they run a report. They make sure that everybody's taken attendance. If they haven't taken attendance, they call the classroom and say, you haven't taken attendance, do that now. That is for every period in secondary schools. So we are ensuring that the data that we are collecting is right, okay? At the end of the day, towards the end of the day, the teachers or the data clerks actually pull who's been tardy, who came in late, who got checked out early. They check to see if that time is correct. They end up then changing it if it's more than a half a day. Then they change it to the absence. Although a kid is at school, they can be counted as absent because if they missed more than half of the day, we actually make that note and change it in our attendance procedures. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay.
But on that teacher's roll, say fifth period, I'm not present, but because I missed first through third.
What happens is it's every one of your periods is marked, right? But then we have an overall day status that changes it to it's an overall status of absent or present.
There may be some districts that count differently, and like you're talking about, this could just be data entry on the larger districts. I mean,
Well, I will say that one thing that one of our data persons did is they did call around to districts that would answer and ask them about their procedures for how they collect data. And it could have been as simple as, well, if you're here in third period, you're here.
you're here. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, I will say that the data that we transmitted to the state is accurate as according to our policy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it goes by period more than time.
In
Secondary.
in secondary, it really still is time because we have 7 periods. It'd be easy if it was 6 periods because if you were absent for 3 or in 3, do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But at this point, because we have 7 periods, it's actually an amount of time during the day.
That's a lot on a
It's-
school data clerk.
It is a lot on a school data
So you
clerk
have to check the sign in and sign out sheet.
every day.
Refresh.
Do
Go ahead,
their
Holly.
other work that they have to.
And they are
that's a
also
lot.
the people who send out your attendance letters. It is a lot of work on data processors at our schools.
Refresh my memory here about dual enrollment students. Do they get counted absent when they're not at school and they're at college?
No, they because we have them as their place of enrollment is
That's
there.
good.
So Laura, you're saying that based on our policy, the 50%, that the data that the percentages that were in the article are accurate.
They are accurate, yes, based on our policy and our procedures to make sure that if students are not there for 50% or more of the time, we do convert them to being absent, although they could be present.
And you're also saying, I guess, and not getting in the weeds too much on this, that every district has their own policy,
Correct.
which I think is ridiculous. And that their policies may be much more lenient than ours, and they may have a higher absenteeism rate. It's just based on their policy, and so you're really, as the superintendent says, you're not looking at apples to apples.
Correct.
So, okay.
And if we want to look good and not get the instruction like we're doing with our 50%, we can do like they're doing. But I prefer
Well,
what we're
it-
doing with the 50%.
I think it's very important that we follow our procedures, follow our policy, especially when we talk about truancy, because if a parent is in truant court and we are not correct in keeping up with our data the right way, that would not be fair. I mean, I would say that if you are truant, you really are missing the time that you could.
Rural districts like Putnam that, we house, we chair the Northeast Florida Consortium, and then you got the Heartland Consortium, you got the Panhandle area. They have a backbone of rural school districts, and their attendance rates are normally gonna be not as good as the more metropolitan areas or I saw a survey this week where put Palm Beach County in one of the most dangerous places to work or live. But anyway, go ahead.
Or, Don had a question.
Yes, sir.
Just basic, is there information available from which you can determine if there's a prevailing standard in the state of Florida for what constitutes absence?
No, there isn't. We could go through and look at every one of the policies we've collected, but then you would have to go back into what are their procedures for making sure that they follow the policy, which would then be kind of like an individual interview with each district.
And so, one of the things that I learned, meeting with the principals and Ms. Simons was that, and this would apply to rural districts across the state, is that if a student misses the bus in the morning, that's it. They're
Yes.
not- They have no other transportation mechanism to get to school, and so they're gonna miss, which is very problematic.
It is, and you will see that, I think actually when you get to some discipline too, that buses in the west and south end are problematic also because of the length of rides that kids are on sometimes.
And you can attach on to what you just said. If they are suspended from the bus,
They're not-
just bus, not school, but suspended from the bus, and they have no means of getting there.
And that's a great point, Ms. Gilliard. The attendance is also taken into effect all out-of-school suspensions. So those attendance rates are excused, unexcused, and out-of-school suspensions. Okay?
Is that,
That's
Normal-
that's statutory,
Okay,
like,
thank
okay.
you.
Yeah, like that's what the state tells us codes, and those are the ones that transmit. We have codes like job shadowing. So a kid is job shadowing and it's approved by the school. We know that they aren't at school, but we also count them as present because they've had an opportunity to do something. Field trips are like that. Okay? All right, those are like district codes. So we actually went back and we looked over since 2010, school 2011, and you can see the district, you can see actually, let's start, in 17 and 18, they actually started with the 10% or more. That was a new category. Before that, it was just students who missed 21 days or more. And so over time, you can see where Putnam is the first column. And then the state percent, that was our percent of students absent, the state, and then that third column over besides before the school year is the one that's the difference between us. So you can see we have been as low as 7.65% more than the state and as high as like 27.45 in 2012-13. So over time, you can see that our attendance has always had an increase over the state, but it has been in that 40% since 2021. And just to put you back in like perspective, school year 1920, that was COVID. And so students did not come to school the last quarter of the year. So there was no attendance taking that last quarter. So that is where we finished at the end of the school year where we took attendance. And this year, the first one at the top is what are we currently at the end of semester one? Where are we at students missing 21 days or more? We ran this at the end of the first semester. Interestingly enough, we ran this report again just like last week, and we're up to already almost like 12.9% of our kids now missing 21 days or more.
which is still problematic of a rural Title I school district. And I understand it. I'm not making excuses because we've got to find ways to make the data work for us. And I think these bigger districts are maybe reporting these absences or truancies different, but go ahead.
No, you're good. One of the things I wanted you to know is that we aren't unaware of this data. The district we come together since 2016-17. We've been doing district data chats. It has lots of different metrics that we put in place. Attendance, discipline, and course performance is one that we've been putting in place, I want to say, in 16-17. And then we actually started creating a thing called a source book. We used to ask the administrators to collect that data on their own and come back to us. And then we decided that it was probably better that we collect the data and just share it with them, and they then process like the thoughts about the data so that they didn't have to do the footwork for it. That way we also knew that it was consistent measurement. I want to show you that in 2017-18, we actually did a push that I'm showing up, attend and achieve. We worked with, it was a campaign that we worked with trying to increase attendance. We made a big push that year. And so I'm going to go back. So that was during the 17-18 year. We made a big push to try to fix attendance. And you can see that we were still, it actually grew. Like we had worse attendance the following, that same year. So we've been looking at attendance for years, but the tracking of it is, you can see that even when we did like a district-wide campaign, it didn't really move the needle. We have a source book, and I'll get into it in a little bit, and you can see all the data that is available to everybody. And when we make that data available to the principals, we make it available to all the schools. So if I'm at Palaca High School, I get to see what Interlochen High School looks like. And that way, if I see someone who's doing something amazing, then I can actually go in and ask them, like, what are you doing? How did you increase your attendance? And that's one thing that you can do today with them, probably about discipline. So in those discipline data chats, I'm just going to pull a couple of slides from them. I just screenshot them from what they come up with. They always have an early warning system. This was part of our graduation work, and to make sure that our students, the course performance, attendance, and discipline was not out of whack. It's just one of those things that the early warning systems that we're supposed to be looking at. So this is one from quarter one this year. You can see where the school is looking at the tardies that have picked up, how their unexcused absences fell, and what their overall attendance rate is. And it's one of the questions or next steps is there's a direct correlation with the attendance in the tardies. We see that as our tardies has risen, our attendances have dropped. Therefore, we need to reiterate to the parents regarding the tardy policy and lost instructional time. So like I've talked to parents about it's really important for your kid to attend, but we're still coming late, so I still need to talk about being on time so that your instruction will continue. So that was one from quarter one. That's in elementary school. This time, because of that article, we actually went ahead and created a different slide for them, and we created a few more metrics in that source book, and we asked them to look at it a different way. So this is, again, an elementary, not the same elementary, a different elementary, where they can look at what was the present for FLDOE, what is their semester, and what's the difference, and they had to, again, come up with some observations and next steps. And so this school looked at, well, our attendance has increased, so what kind of incentives should we have for semester 2 to try to increase some incentives? Should we have a parent night for attendance and continue to post on social media? So those are some of the things that they felt like they could take on to maybe help impact attendance at their school. So I just wanted you to know that it's not lost on us that we need to track attendance, and discipline, you'll see that that's also there too. So how do parents get notified when their kid is absent? So every time a child is absent or tardy, even if it's just one class, tardy in a secondary school, alerts are pushed out at 6 o'clock at night. So again, we go back to that tardy. The data clerks are in there working, making sure that they fixed everything. At 4 o'clock, it flips a switch. It changes them to absent. And then at 6 o'clock, we don't send out phone calls because people get irritated at the phone calls, but they get text notifications and they get email notifications. And it's everybody in Family 1, Guardian 1, Family 2, Guardian 2, and Guardian 1. Just those are all the people who get the notifications. This is the report just from yesterday. It looks like yesterday we sent out the tardy, an email went to right over 1,400 people, with 80 failed, meaning that the text number was bad. And then we had attendance of 3,061 attendance calls went out yesterday.
So
But
that's,
remember, it's going to the parent 1, parent 2, or guardian 1. So it's making multiple calls or multiple emails for people who are on that list.
I just want to make sure, because
About right.
I deal with this at least in other counties with my clients, where you've got mom living over here, you got dad living over here, and schools that are saying, we only contact parent 1.
No, it's Family 1, Guardian 1, Family 1, Guardian 2, Family 2, Guardian 1.
So at least one person so 2 people from the Family 1, and just 1 person, though, from the Family 2.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, no, I'm glad to hear that, because some other counties do not do that, and it's become very problematic for parents that are trying to stay on top of their kids'
Attendance.
when they're not with them, so.
Yep.
So that's 3 contacts, email and text message.
Yes.
So
And
technically,
Miss
I could
McCool,
get 6 contacts within my family about my child. Like, I would get one, my husband would get one.
And then
Yes.
one other.
and you get an email?
And you see how many bad ones are there?
Yeah, you can see how many bad ones are on there.
Well, on a particular day, you could have a wreck on 17 South.
Yeah.
207's gonna be shut down. You can't get the buses to school.
But that would be coded differently,
It-
wouldn't it?
It'd still be a tardy.
It's tardy.
It would
But
be
it's an
excused, but it's
excuse.
still tardy.
It's still gonna register. There are different ways to, that's what we're about. I mean, if we can legally excuse it, we could. But, we used to have the attendance officers that we had steady
Oh, it
on
wouldn't
the
be all
roads.
day.
Yeah.
And
And,
tardies don't
We've gone through grants with teachers as
get
advisors.
transmitted,
and
only if they are
over the
late.
years. I don't know.
So let me clarify what Ms. Pickens asked. Tardies don't transmit unless you've been tardy or checked out for more than half the day. Then it transmits as an absence. Does that make sense? Okay. So I want to make sure that you understand, that our parents get notified when kids are tardy. They get notified when they are absent. I'm a parent. I get notified. One of the things that Mr. Buckles continues. Yes, I'm sorry.
well, I was just thinking, do we have a person like maybe Mr. Hinkie that's got a statistical background that could do some analysis for us on that and look at the ratio of those students that are tardy and absence, based on grade level and what kind of student they are, whether they're however y'all rank the students, 1, 2, 3 levels, level 1, level 2.
They're chronic absentee student or absent.
You probably could. We probably could do that, and it would be probably Stacy Owens who would do that for us. If that was something you wanted, I would meet with you to ask you more clarifying, because I kind of want to go through the health pieces
go
that
ahead,
we've
go
had.
ahead,
Mr. Buckles alluded to being a high poverty rural district. We have problems busing. But I just want to draw attention to the amount of health changes we've had just over the last 2 years. Now this is comparing year 21-22 and 22-23. In 21-22, we had a little over 4,500 health conditions listed for students. Last year it was 6,200, over 6,200. And that is students can have more than one health condition. So that number is, the second number down there is really the number of students with a health condition. The third number down there is the number of students requiring medicine or procedures during the day. 2 years ago it was 485. This year it's been 804. No, last year, I'm sorry. We don't have the numbers for this year. You can see the differences in clinics between 21-22 and 22-23. And part of that is we've had to institute more clinic policies because of the fact that they need to come to the clinic to get a Band-Aid. We don't have like Band-Aid stations in the back of the room. They need to go to the clinic as part of one of the, was it House Bill 1 that came out a while back? And then, but that doesn't mean we're sending a lot of kids home. On that fifth bullet down, it's the percent of students we actually return after visiting a clinic. And you can say, you can see that we're actually returning more students to class, even if they have visited a clinic. The last bit of data is a little concerning. Last year we had 45 EMS calls. This year so far we've had 66. The information below that shows you that they are not frivolous calls. 38 of them have been medical or poison control consult with a substance exposure and ingestion, and 9 of them have required either an EpiPen, Heimlich, or Narcan.
Well, let me interject. Just I actually talked with our HR director, Tanya Wyhurst, recently, and she is actually doing a little study on our employee absences, which we are starting to see, and I don't want to say this too early, but is kind of reflecting the student attendance. And a lot of that may or may not be due to the illness factor that Laura's talking about, but I think when we have that, we'll report that back. But again, that's something that we definitely need to look at as well for a number of reasons.
We are a mirror of society. If it's happening in the homes, and if the teacher is out, they may have a sick child.
Sure.
You know, it's just, I've been through this so many times, I don't have all the answers, but I'll go ahead and let you go, and then we'll talk at the end.
Before COVID, we really pushed attendance every day. Even if you don't feel good, come to school. If you're not running a fever, then get here. Your stomach hurts, too bad, come on. But once COVID hit and after that, we had so many exclusions, and we didn't want to push kids to come to school when they aren't well. And so we kind of stopped those things of perfect attendance. If everybody's here, you get a pizza party, because the one kid who feels bad because they didn't come and the class doesn't get a pizza party, but then bring something to school that impacts everybody. We kind of quit that idea of pushing, even if you don't feel good, come every day. But you can also see that we have a lot more health issues coming to school than we did, a couple of years ago also.
COVID, how much is that impacting?
Well, I can go back in the presentation and we can go back to like what it looked like prior. I probably should have put this in a couple of times. That year 1920 is the year COVID hit. And then 2021, the weird thing about 2021 is we had virtual learning. Kids came in and out. We also had quarantining, and we would send kids home. But if you signed in and worked on the computer, we counted you as present. But if you didn't, we didn't. So that year was a little bit weird because you had option 1 and 2 and back and forth. I will tell you, we've started taking attendance for our kids in virtual school. If you do not sign up in our virtual, if you don't sign in during our virtual school, we have policies and procedures now where you're expected to work a little bit every day and everything. And so we have attendance policies there that we didn't have before. And part of that is because we want those kids to be successful.
And that year, 1920, is the year we shut down in March and sent everybody home. So that's kind of reflective of what happened that year.
The 18-19 year would be the last year of like regular attendance before that.
And I guess is the health department still reporting COVID cases?
No.
No, okay.
I've got family members with COVID right now. It's just, You know, it's just everybody, you know, it's pockets everywhere.
When it says health conditions, what qualifies as a health condition to be on?
It could be diabetes, it could be asthma, it could be allergies, it could be
Head lice, cave.
no, not head lice, but it could be like a student that has a shunt. We have very complex medical conditions coming in that are very concerning right now. But we have, those health conditions can range from, I have eyesight issues to I have 4 or 5 things that are life-threatening checked.
So some of them aren't necessarily, they're not necessarily very serious types things. So
Correct.
If you have an
Correct.
eyesight problem.
Right.
So something like that would actually be on that list?
Yes.
Even if it's just that they have vision problems and wear glasses?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So it's not something that necessarily there has to be steps
If
to
a
accommodate?
kid could have an allergy, but it wouldn't be anything that they would take at school, like Motrin.
Over the
you
years,
know.
the entire district has done eye checks of students throughout the district, elementary schools in particular, that have never had their eyes checked. So, I mean, there are things that we have done in the years that help, but I mean, it's just a matter of money. How much money and how many people, whether it's attendance officers or you're hiring off-duty deputies to go out to these chronic absenteeism way out in the woods that live in a tool shed or somewhere, it's pitiful.
I think the number of students requiring medication or procedures at school going up, that is a kid who would be more intense.
Yes.
Yep, okay. So I wanted to say there are a lot of things that we do to try to help with those health risks. We have Mrs. Foster, who is our RN case management consultant. She consults people after hours on weekends. If we have a child that's transported to a hospital, she's calling the parents, talking to them about what care plan we need when we get back. She also has done the Vision Mobile Clinic and which gives free eye exams and glasses for students. She has helped us with vaccine clinics for the schools. We worked really hard because this is another thing of absences that count as an absence. In fall of 2022, after COVID, lots of parents stopped or could not. I was one of those parents too. Couldn't get their kid in to get the vaccination and to get the regular screenings that you normally would do because doctors' offices were closed and then backed up. In 2022, we had to send 1,200 plus kids home for not having their proper vaccination or health exam. And we didn't do it like out of the blue. This was after multiple weeks and months of attempting to get them to get it done on their own. But after that was all said and done, after that mass communication was done and contacting them, 1,200 kids had to stay home until they could get the things that they actually needed to get to come back to school. That's part of our work with the health department. They make sure that we keep in compliance with what we're required to do. This year, we only had 309 that had to go home. So it's getting better. And that's a lot less than the year before, but 309 students missed at least one day because they could not come to school because they had not gotten the required vaccinations or health screenings.
That's that 7th grade thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, well, I don't call it thing, but
yeah, yes.
having it all, yeah.
Yep. And we did lots and lots of vaccinations at school trying to help people get those done before. But
Which you have to do.
unfortunately, when it gets down to it, it does, sending them home until they get it does eventually get them to come to school. But those are all absences that get calculated. With that, I just kind of want to talk real quick about truancy. Truancy is a student who has missed 15 or more unexcused absences within 90 days. Mr. Weaver could probably talk a lot more about truancy. We did get some numbers from him. Last year, there were 121 court cases filed for truancy, and this year we've had 47 filed through January.
Or just want to give you a 5-minute warning and allow for Q&A. And also, Judge Janeski is can definitely speak to the truancy issue too. I want to give her an opportunity to speak whenever the opportunity arises.
This would be great right now.
Okay?
Okay, I'm Judge Emery Janusa. I am the truancy and delinquency judge as well as the criminal judge. So I have
Emery, could I ask you to come up because, so we can record it?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you again for taking time to come up. I know you had to clear your schedule, so we certainly appreciate it.
Well, this is really important, and as a mother to 5 children who went through the school district, I am very supportive of our education system and our children, so I'm honored to be here. I'm Judge Amory Janusa. I am not only your county judge in criminal county, but also I have acting circuit powers as the juvenile delinquency judge, as well as the truancy court judge. So I've been doing it now for probably about 6 months and have gotten to see the different trends and what's going on. I will tell you what I see most of all is really not the children, it's the parents. And I really don't know how to fix that because I think systemically, whether it's St. John's, Putnam, Palm Coast, Flagler, I think when you have parents who are not engaged in their children, I think that that is one of the biggest issues I see. And when people come to my courtroom and I want to know, when I'm being told by the sheriff's office, you know, so-and-so has 21 absences or really 32 absences in 90 days, and I inquire, you know, with the parent, like, how does that happen? I mean, I've been given excuses, everything from my mother passed away to I was just really tired. I worked the night before, and it's it's incredulous to me that the child's sitting there, and the child is the one who's really going to get the penalty of it because they're truant, and you have parents that just they're not engaged in that. And I usually like to ask, because I think you'll see trends, and one of them are there dependency cases? Were there child support cases? Like, what is the legal status of what's going on so that I can have a bigger picture and not just a vacuum of the school part of it? Because, I mean, I'll ask, Mom, are you working? What assistance do you need? And 90% of the people I've spoken to will say, no, well, I'm not working. Well, okay, why can't your kid be to school? I mean, and, it's, for me, obviously, I have a job to do, but, I wish there was a penalty for the parent, because really the child is the one who's going to not only suffer on the emotional level, and you could see that the kids want to be in school. I mean, it's not that, you have a few that definitely there's some behavioral problems, and, obviously those are issues, but over 75% of the kids want to be in school. And so the reason why I ask about, is there like a dependency case? Because sometimes there's resources that the school district does not have, the money for, that another branch of the court system can. So that, to me, I always like to look at the big picture, because I do believe that that is a big systemic problem. And it's not just in Putnam. Don't let them fool you with these statistics. St. John's, although they're the lowest, and that's where I came from, there are plenty of parents there that don't take their kids to school. You have kids biking at 6 years old on like a major highway to get to school. And then, only after there's an issue, you'll have a DCF case. But the writing was on the wall. I mean, kids come to school, they don't have shoes, they don't have breakfast, they don't have food. So, I mean, I definitely, it's not unique to Putnam County. And I think that article, which I did read, doesn't take into account really the hard work that everybody's doing, and makes it because it's a rural county. And that's not necessarily true. But the problem is, if the kid misses the bus and you're 25 miles from school, guess what? They're not going to school. I mean, it's just a reality. And mom or dad or grandma or whoever's stepping up may not have the ability to get them there either. That's really a concern too. So I want you to know, shockingly, my March court date was actually canceled due to the fact of a lot of compliance. So I am seeing more compliance in my courtroom, which was really nice. I of course, had to do a couple things with parents, but I don't have a problem doing that, because I truly believe that children need to have good examples. And usually some of the good examples is maybe a deputy who takes them under their wing and wants to be there. Somebody from the school board who knows, the child's not getting there. And those are the people that go out of their way, the teachers, who will do what they can to maybe pick the kid up from school to get them there. And that does not go unnoticed. Unfortunately, when you have a large group of children, which obviously with those statistics, but like I said, I think those are a little manipulative in the sense that you guys have a very strict attendance policy where there's other ones that don't. So I'm just happy to report that I am seeing a increase in people complying and trying to go to school. It's my hope by the end of this school year we'll have some more stats with that. I did take some notes just so I'm aware. I was unaware of your 50% rule, so now that kind of puts it in a little different perspective for me, which I appreciate that because I came from a different place, so that makes a lot more sense. But you know, all I can say is keep doing what you're doing. I mean, it's marginal and it's a little bit and it's verifiable, but it is getting better. And I'm happy to be part of this system. And my door is always open. I welcome opportunity to have students in my courtroom to see what's going on, so that they don't have to come, you know, see me for another thing. But I do appreciate the job everyone is doing. So.
Well, Judge, I just want to personally thank you because you, not only do you have to do your job and, you know, hand down, you know, penalties or whatever you have to do, but you really, truly are trying to be proactive and make an impact. And I just want to thank you for that. And especially thank you for coming here and talking to our board.
Yeah, I appreciate you letting me. Now, the other thing I will tell you, I like diversion programs. I think that they work really well for children. I did contact the state attorney's office to inquire, and I mentioned it to Mr. Hedstrom, about possibly a teen court diversion program as well. Because I really want, you know, Putnam County is my home, and I want to see the children here successful. I've been practicing here for over 23 years, so I really, really think that you have a lot of great hidden talent, not only in athletics, but in academics. I've seen some of your debate teams. I've seen some, you know, I've been to some of the functions, and pretty impressive. So I'm very happy to be part of that, and thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak
And
to you.
Judge lives in Putnam County, so.
I'm a Melrose girl now, so yes.
Appreciate what you're doing.
And, Madam Chair, I just want to remind you that we're at the halfway point.
Yes.
So if you had any questions on attendance or whatever, I just want to make sure all your questions are answered, but we do have our discipline presentation teed up and ready to go, but
Yeah.
it's entirely up to you and the board.
So
And, go ahead, go ahead.
I just had, the legislature was aware of this, and Chair Trablusi of the Education and Employment Subcommittee said that they were going to be addressing it. I haven't seen anything come out, but evidently they're aware of the situation because, you know, irregardless of how you play the numbers game, it's a problem statewide and especially in rural districts. So we want to make sure Patrick gets a heads up on that and he gives us any notice if they're, I mean, I don't think anything's going to happen this session, but.
We do have Shondell Goddard here from
Yeah,
Bobby
I invited her.
Office. And I'm sure she's taking notes and gonna have, make him aware of it too, so.
Well, until board member reports up, you know, we've had grants over the years where students and families were worked with that had problems like this, so that may be something we look at some point.
I think at the end today, hopefully we'll be able to do next steps with the board and see what they would like to do. But one of the things that Mrs. Drew and I sat in on already is a product or a company called Everyday Labs. They work in 3 other counties in the state of Florida. They work specifically with real districts, making a difference in trying to reduce the number of kids in that tier 3. One of the things is that their 22-23 results is that 66% of their students approved a attendance tier, which means they went from like the critical down. So, and then 20% of the students no longer were chronically absent. That still doesn't look great because you don't like all the red, but you don't switch off like all of a sudden coming to school when you didn't come to school. It's a slow roll, but that is one of the things that we did look at. One of the things that they really do support is getting those informational sheets to the parents that are in parent-friendly language that has data specifically about their child so that they can see that their child is outside of the norm of being attended. So but I've got that information if you guys are interested in that, and what the cost is for the district. It would take a lot of the work off of the data clerks that are trying to, the data clerks still have to switch that key to say that the kid was absent or not, but all of the attendance letters and the truancy notices would then be handed over to that company to print and send out mail, which would greatly relieve the data clerks.
And the sad thing, the time that we hear about them is promotion and graduation. Did they get promoted and are they graduating? And it's like, where were you with all these report cards and the truancy notices, et cetera? But that's when they come alive and want something in regards to the child's attendance and academics. It's sad, like the judge said. How do we fix parents? We just keep trying, because the things that you listed as being proactive, those things are gonna help us some. We're not gonna reach them all, but at least we can possibly decrease the numbers.
Yes, ma'am.
Laura, thank you again for putting that
Thank you.
together, and
Your preparation.
we're gonna transition to discipline. And again, I know some of you have some questions, and I know we have a presentation, but again, this is a conversation, and we want
Yeah.
to definitely address any of your
And
concerns.
if something comes up, I'm sure we can email you or text you or call you, and you can get it through your team, so
And-
we're not worried, they're accessible.
And I talked to Susan, and we can go, I think, as late as 3:20, right?
Yeah,
we do
because
have
they
to-
need to switch over.
We gotta switch over and all,
She
so
said.
I wanna give us as much time as possible.
I do need to make one clarification. Eyeglasses are not on there. It's a checklist that we use, we check them off as parents, but those health risks are, I'm sorry, I needed to make sure that I clarified that. ADD, ADHD, allergies, non-life-threatening, allergies, life-threatening, asthma, autism spectrum disorder, bleeding disorders, cancer, cardiac conditions, cystic fibrosis, diabetes, epilepsy, seizures, kidney disorders, lupus, behavioral health conditions, sickle cell, and other. And so when you look at those numbers of
And it's
students,
sad that they-
those are the numbers that are being reported, not eyeglasses or hearing, sorry.
And do y'all have any breakdown of
She
those
does, and
different?
actually, I think I have that in here. I didn't want to maybe draw attention to like numbers, but I think I have that, and I can share that with you.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Drew?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good afternoon. We're going to take some time to talk about the discipline side of things, present some data, and allow time for questions and answers. We're going to share some source book. It's the data that Laura mentioned earlier that the principals utilize when they're coming up with their data chats, the information for their data chats. We also have CESAR data if we need to look at that, and we have expulsion data if we need to look at that as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. I just want to orient you to the way that these are set up, and then I'm going to give or allow each school to speak and possibly even get on the data source book live if they need to and drive to a particular area of that they want to share, because I feel like we can show you this data and the numbers are numbers, but the schools can tell you the story behind the data. The schools know about their culture and their climate and what they've done to affect that. So when you look at this particular slide, this is the number of behavioral referrals. And again, it is a 3-year quarter comparison. So you can look at quarter 1 versus quarter 2, and then they have an actual average. So just for an example, if you want to go down to Palatka High School, third from the bottom, you can see in quarter 1, when you look across 22, 23, and 24 school years, they've had quite a reduction in the number of behavioral referrals. And if you jump over to the next column, labeled quarter 2, also another reduction, quite a big reduction in the number of referrals. And that's something to be proud of, especially, quarter 2, it's getting closer to Christmas. We've had some holidays mixed in. And that's when sometimes the honeymoon period is over and kids are starting to test some limits and test some waters that they shouldn't be. So, they've put a lot of things in place that I'm sure Ms. Oyster can speak to. The same thing with Crescent City High School and Interlochen Junior Senior High School. You'll see maybe in 2023 overall there are some increases, but then that number decreases again when you get to 2024. So that's how those slides look. And we'll let them speak to that in just a moment. I also want to bring to our attention, when we're talking about bus referrals or when we're talking about referrals overall, bus referrals are included in those numbers. And to be fair to the school, while I think that the transportation department does what they can to educate the bus drivers and give them strategies, it is still very difficult for them. You know, they're, and Randy calls it a classroom rolling down the road. It is difficult for them to, even with a bus aid sometimes, to control everything because they have limited strategies in their toolbox to handle kids sometimes. But you can, as you look at the data, start noticing that sometimes there are particular grade levels that have higher rates of referrals, and sometimes you can see there are areas of the county that may have higher referral counts. And sometimes, like I said, maybe it's particular drivers that don't have the strategies that they need, and we do have a plan to work on that in the coming months. But also, how long is their bus ride? How long are they on that bus every day in the morning and every day in the afternoon? And of course, on the west end, and some on the south, they are on those buses for a longer period of time. So you will have access to this data as well. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And then there's a suspension slide. So we all know that with referrals, sometimes you get in-school suspension, sometimes you get out-of-school suspension. So this is out-of-school suspension because when they're in-school suspension, they are considered to still be having access to their schoolwork. And so when you look at the numbers, it's the out-of-school suspensions that will be recorded here. So again, each school has different numbers. Each school has a story about those suspensions. And I just wanted to make a point that those reductions in the amount of suspensions are due to the fact that each school is really looking at each grade level, how can they support those grade levels, and what are we putting in place with our culture and our climate. And we know that this is year 2 or 3 with junior high, year 3. Yeah, this is year 3 where we have combined the schools, and we have our 7th and 8th grade students now with our 9th through 12th grade students. And historically, and I can vouch to this, having been at Jenkins Middle School as a principal for 3 years, that middle school, there's always an increase in the amount of referrals, especially in 7th grade. That just seems to be puberty, hormones, I mean, all kinds of issues that 7th graders deal with. And I used to sit with parents all the time in parent conferences who would be in tears, and then the next year they'd be happy again because they got their child back. So it is something that they deal with on a daily basis, is different behaviors from different grade levels of students.
Have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So of those referrals, the students that are in the solution classes, what are they included in that, or are they, I mean, because they don't really get referrals, right?
Yes, sir. They get the referrals that land them in solutions, and we even have some while they're in solutions and they're not following rules and procedures that can get referrals while they're in solutions, and that will be part of our conversation on another slide. So this is the time I would like to give the opportunity to the principals to either go back to one of the slides I just presented or jump on the source book. And I'll start with Palatka Junior Senior High School. You want the source book or the slides?
The source is up in the, you'll have to stop the presentation, but it's up there.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
All righty. And
All right, so most people don't get excited about discipline, but I'm a nerd and I do get excited. And I get excited because I know the changes that have occurred at Palatka High. Let me see, that's not it. Here we go. So as Ms. Drew pointed out, our suspensions have dropped dramatically. You'll see from 167 and 22 to 161 to 72, and in quarter 2 you see the same pattern. Not only with suspensions will you find that pattern, you'll also find it with the number of students with suspensions has also dropped dramatically as well. You'll see the number right here, highlighted quarter 1 and quarter 2. And then when you come down to the rate of suspension, again, 3 high schools have again shown that consistent decline. Palatka High, you'll see here. The rate of suspension has dropped each quarter. And then the number of referrals, as Mr. Drew pointed out as well, continues the same pattern. 3 contributing factors to our discipline drop. Number 1, our culture really took a change when Bailey Holbert passed away. She really united our school and our students, and they wanted to change their lives and do better. Secondly, we've had amazing partnership with the Sheriff's Department. They have really helped us and worked closely with us and really helped us to make a proactive stance, especially in football games, basketball games, helping us to keep things calm so that when they come to school, we have not built up this negative energy whatsoever. Same thing happens when they are at a basketball game or a football game and it carries over into the city. With their help, we've been able to reduce some of that violence, and it's been able to carry over into the school as well. Finally, we've added mentors. One thing that we've done is every grade level has a mentor assigned. We identify students that are really our problematic students, our frequent flyers, and those students are assigned a mentor. They are hands-on. We have one mentor, Mr. Lugo, assigned to 7th grade. We have Mr. Holmes in the 8th grade hallway. We have Mr. Evans. Everyone has an assigned area, and they are right there. Their kids know if they have a problem, that's where they go. And before things escalate in the school, that's where they go to get help before things go out and back. But we've really been able to make a lot of progress, and we're proud of that progress. We're hopeful and continues. Another piece of data that I'm very proud of is we've actually reduced fighting by 62%. So when you look at the number of fights up from August to right now of last year to August of now to now this year, 62% reduction.
Kathy, how many of the suspensions are repeat offenders? Do you know?
Not off the top of my head, no, sir, but I know that students in solutions, only less than half of them are students that are habitually continuing to get referrals. Other half come out, there's no disciplinary problems with them.
Yeah.
And then of that half, there's probably 8 frequent flyers.
The TA program, teachers, advisors, mentors, that all makes a real difference with some of these kids. Sure.
Ms. Simons?
Good afternoon.
So I wanted to stay on the same slide that Kathy was on, the 3-year quarter comparisons. So my school is a little bit unique in that even though 7 through 12 had been combined 3 years ago, this is the first year that we have actually put 7 through 12 on the main campus together. Still have some things going on next door, but the majority of the kids are now on our campus, and all of our resources are now on our campus together. 7th and 8th grade is in our main 2 hallways. Their core classes take place in our main 2 hallways. And so these kids stay within 7th and 8th grade for the majority of the day, except for electives to go out. So if you look on here, I will start with suspensions because attendance, like we said, is very important. We need kids to be in school so they're learning. So if you look, quarter 1 last year, we were at 105 number of students with suspensions. This year we were at 65. Quarter 2 last year was at 101. This year we were down to 59. Let me go back up. This is actual number of suspensions. Last year, quarter 1, 186. This year, quarter 1, 84. Last year, quarter 1, 159. This year, 89. And then I wanted to show one more, which was actually our school rate of suspensions. So last year, we were at 10% of the population in quarter 1. This year, we were at 6. Quarter 2, we were at 9. This year, we are at 6. So we still have lots of work to do, but I feel like we're trending in the right direction with that. Any questions?
And this is your
First year. Mm-hmm.
So,
She's been
So
out
the
for a while.
merging the campuses together actually came on in May of last year. So we were able to do a lot of that prep work then, and it was completed by the summer. And so when those kids came on campus first day, their new locations were in place. And I really think that has helped. Just having our middle school, they have one lunch, so those kids all go to lunch together. We made it work in the cafeteria, they fit. And so it also, we have very little movement in there, so we put a lot of things in place, like in transitions and lunch, to kind of make it smooth and also, you know, make sure everybody's safe.
Now, I know Ms. Oyster mentioned that fights had reduced. Off the top of your head, all three of you, what seems to be one of the common themes of our suspensions for the kids? Is it skipping class, smoking? What?
Vapes are a huge
Vapes,
issue.
okay. All right. Just kind of trying to see an area where we can kind of hone in on and start doing some things. But okay, thank you.
So the middle school building is vacant now?
So it's not vacant. We actually have our ROTC is there, and then we also use it for junior high PE, and we use it to test. So we still are utilizing parts of the building, but we don't have any core classes going on over there.
So how much space is available there?
Well, we also have a wing right now where the fire department is using a wing of it while the new fire station is being built. I don't, if I had to give a percentage, I'd have to ask Travis Weaver, but probably about 40% of it is vacant.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Adams?
So out of the three principals, I'm the lucky one. You know, Crescent City is unique. I've had the opportunity to serve in Crescent City for 10 of my 14 years as a principal. Prior to being moved to the junior senior high school, I was already at the middle school, and I'd spent a lot of time at the elementary school. So the kids, we know the kids. We know our community and things like that. I want to go back to some of the same data. When you look at suspensions for quarter one in 2022, 2023, 2024, this is where we're at. We had 23 and 22, we had 39 and 23, and then school year 2024-25. And in the second quarter, we've gone from 54 to 32 to 25. When we look at the number of students suspended, we went from 21 up to 33 down to 24. And then for the second quarter, 41 to 29 to 24. And then our school rate of suspension is different. 2%, 3% to 2%, and then for quarter two, 4%, 3% to 2%. But I'd like to talk about what we've done as far as developing relationships with our kids. I think that's a huge factor. I think having rigorous instruction in classrooms has been key. We have also done some other things. We have the novice teacher mentors that come in and support our teachers. We have classroom management trainings for our teachers as well. Just recently, we started escorting our students to and from the bathrooms due to vapes and things like that. And we started that on January the 29th. And we've only had one vape incident since. So that says a lot about what we're doing. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I don't want to interrupt you, below, because it's
okay.
in and out. I was just going to ask, personnel, escort them to the rest. Where do you find the people? Where are you getting the people?
It's administration, it's deans, it's instructional assistants. We're all really chipping in. Okay. We take zones, we take opportunities, timeframes, and things like that. But it has also helped us to remain in classrooms too. You know, so when I find myself carrying my computer, if I go and I'm going in the classroom to relieve a student, help them out, I bring them back in and I stay in the classroom for a while. Whether it's an observation or just, you know, helping out where I can. Of the 818 referrals, 257 of our referrals are due to cell phone misuse. So when we talk about cell phone misuse, it's actually the kids taking them out during instructional time. We have to figure out a way to help our kids calm that down a bit. But that's 31% of my referrals come from cell phone misuse. So I just wanted to share that piece too.
Is that the case with, no?
I have cell phone issues too, but I wouldn't say that's my biggest problem.
So our top 4 referrals: cell phone misuse, disruption, skipping, and misconduct. Those are our top 4 issues.
I think
Now, it was vaping though.
Well, of there are 27 referrals, 16 are drug use and/or possession, and 11 are tobacco, assessor, vaping related.
we recently purchased some AI-related cameras to assist us in catching kids vaping in areas that you can't supervise.
Well,
I think,
I believe I talked to Ms. They, in and of themselves, are kind of a situation because they get the warning, but then they've got to go back and check the cameras for when, so it does take a long, it takes, yeah.
I got you. So you get a warning, and if you're not, it's not like a hunting camera that pings to your phone. You gotta go back and pull it up.
And so it's not while the student is in the restroom. Like, there's about a 5-minute delay when you get an email, and so then you can follow up and try to figure it out.
It's always been the same way with smoking. I mean,
But
vaping.
didn't we, I don't know who I'm asking, the administrator. Didn't we approve like $1 million expenditure to upgrade the cameras and, where it won't be delayed and, we have all these facial recognitions and, state-of-the-art stuff? Where is that?
Thomas, can you speak to that?
Those are the robotics.
Yeah.
You're kidding. Those are the ones,
Facial, I mean, it's a clear picture. There's just,
But it's-
you have to leave the restroom for it to do the,
It sends you a warning, it says, hey, something's happening.
If you're not monitoring the picture, have somebody full-time looking at it, you're not gonna know. You'll come back and you'll see that the warning's gone off, or you'll get there and the person's already gone after
you
they've,
still have to search the student.
Right.
And they may not have anything on them.
I got you.
I guess
okay.
I completely misunderstood when the guy made that presentation, and I know it was an emergency item, but that's not what I thought we were spending $1 million on.
Well, I do think some of the problem is that they,
Yeah, and I mean, we buy cameras for more than just catching people vape.
Well, the football games, IDing felons and people that have made threats in the community was what was very important.
But I thought we were going into each of the high schools and putting all new cameras and new hardware, software. I mean, am I wrong? Was that not what we were doing? Is that done, or are we doing it, or what?
We're not done. I think the
Well,
others have to receive theirs.
They're at Interlochen High already.
Palaca High, they were just there and they were starting to look at putting them up all over, but the camera systems have to be upgraded. They're in terrible condition right now. The big thing that I'm excited about with the new camera system is the facial recognition. because
Right,
what it's
you can get them
allowed-
later.
If Amber's trespassed, I can put a picture of Amber in and it will alert us and say, hey, Amber's
Immediately.
on your campus or Amber is here. You can also do a search, so if you have someone call in a lockdown and say, hey, I see a stranger with a red backpack, you can type in red backpack and it will pull up every screen that has a red backpack.
Wow.
And you can track it. So like in my office in the closet, I've got 4 or 5 TVs and it will show everything, that entire person, and track that one person.
but I do think part of the problem was the sensor notifying you. That's part of the time lapse. It's not the cameras that we have, it's the sensor notifying. Right, and notifying them.
Yeah, it doesn't immediately come to your phone or, but it helps law enforcement find felons in the community that have made a threat to do violence or bad things if they're on campus or in a ball game or wherever. So I understand that, but the guy that we had the presentation did mention vaping, which, that's something we need to tweak and look at getting straightened out.
It also helps you know, like a trend at your school, like if a certain area,
Hotspots, yeah.
then you know, like, we need more supervision in this particular area.
Tim, did you have something to add?
I was gonna say, the kids too are pretty smart about vaping, so.
Oh, yeah.
I could think of a particular student who, was vaping but had an empty Coke can. and would vape, but would blow into the can, the smoke.
Or bottle or
And they would
whatever.
cover it up. So I don't know if that would have anything to do with the sensors and things like that, but, you know, students are very aware and are always scheming.
There are actually vapes that look like highlighters. There are hoodies that have strings that are made for kids to vape into the strings and get it from the strings of the hoodie. So there are tons of ways that they can try to sneak that in. And for the sake of time, is it okay with the board members if I go through the last couple of slides that
Yes.
we have here? Okay, thank you.
We can bring the rest up under board reports.
Yes, sir.
We got about 9 minutes left.
Okay, so I just wanted to show this slide just for an understanding of, you can see our assessor data. These are the more serious referrals that are reported to the state as assessor event. You can see it goes directly back to the tobacco, which is mostly in vape form these days, being 56% or over 56% from August to this January of our top assessor violations, which is interesting when you look at fighting and simple battery. They're a much smaller slice of this pie. So yes, we definitely have to figure out what we can do with the vaping occurrences. This is our expulsion data going all the way back to 17-18. I'm not going to go back to 17-18, but if you look at last year compared to where we are, and just starting semester 2 of this year, there is a reduction of expulsions. We do have about 5 or 6 hearings that are scheduled, but it's pretty common for this time of the year for us to have an increase of those packets turned in to have those hearings. That doesn't mean 6 more kids will be expelled. It just means we're having hearings on about 6 more kids. So, Randy, do you have anything to say about the expulsion data before I go to our last bit? Okay. This is the part that I really want to highlight, and I'm sure Randy can speak to this as well. We know what our data is. We know we have pockets, we have hot spots, we have issues still in our schools, but we have strategies in place for addressing some of these concerning behaviors. Mr. Hedstrom, do you want to speak to this?
Good afternoon. So a lot of the information up there, we work with the schools on trying to find things. For example, ripple effects. When I first came into this position, the kids that are in Solution or in ISS, we purchased that ripple effect, so it gives an opportunity for the students to say their parents are going through a divorce and they're going through a hard time, their discipline has increased. Ripple Effects has a way of where you can go on there, and it's bought specifically for the kids in ISS and Solutions to where they can go in, and the deans, the administration can assign them assignments after talking with them about situations that they're going through. Has a situation there about drugs, alcohol, tobacco products, so where they can do educational. So we're not just punishing the child, we are also trying to rehabilitate the child, educate the child on what the dangers are of some of those effects. So we do have that. We also had the judge, Janitsu. She came in and was a guest speaker at Palaca High School. Their solution center, because of some of the issues we were having back then when we had a lot of fights and so on that were going on there and some violence. So she came in and talked to the kids. We also have made contact with Jarvis Williams, and we have him coming in at all 3 high schools and giving a speech in March, or talking with the kids in March, which we will do a survey to see how that's done and how that's helped, if it has helped at all. So we're trying to put some information into those kids and some investment in there to hopefully help them. So we increase that 50% to 60% of kids. So when they actually have issues and solutions, they come out and are a better academic student and are able to know how to act in an academic setting, is what we're trying to do with the majority of that. Okay, with that. So we just did Navigate 360. We had that at Palaca High School last year, and we're putting it at all 3 schools. We just nailed that down, and that is specifically for Solution Center and ISS. The kids that are having the most issues, we're trying to put some resources there that we can afford that will help those kids out, help them with some of the issues and so on that they have.
I want to make sure we have time, Madam Chair, for y'all, for y'all to ask questions or have
Okay,
comments or
comments.
anything.
Yes.
Because I know we have, got 5 minutes left, so, you know, and I don't want to cut you off. I just want to make sure they have time to
Well,
ask questions.
I think I'll do mine under board member reports, because I was in here last week, 3 or 4 days, but I think that you know what my concerns would be, and you've been through it with me before, so, when you were administrator. So I'll let them ask questions.
And it's safe to say that this is just round one.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was gonna
Most
recommend.
definitely, so we're not saying, we're getting this information to start looking around and trying to find ways that we can help alleviate these little pockets. Some things that I've seen being on the expulsion committee, I told you about it the other night, wherein a student came before us, and now seeing that student in the position I saw them in, and the parents believing that we are, and are we gonna save them all? Hopefully we could, but there are gonna be a few that will slip through the cracks, but those that we can, and those that want to be helped through mental illness trainings, through these things that are mentioned here, we'll get to them, but you're making an effort, you're speaking, and we're hearing you. It is not falling on deaf ears, and I appreciate the fact that you are thinking outside of the box yourselves. You are going out trying to find ways to help with this, not to put the kids out, but those that want to be helped, to make sure that they're staying there and getting what they need, and so.
Are you gonna go and you wanna?
All right, Mrs. Pickens, we'll see if you have any questions.
I don't have any questions really. I'd like to applaud all 3 of the administrators that are here because they each know their school and know their data and own it, and are trying to make it better, to make the culture better with the students, and I just applaud them. Are we perfect? No. Should we look at this again, maybe every quarter when the data's drawn? You know, maybe we could catch something that was happening before it started happening more frequently. The more conversation, to me, the better.
And I want to put a plug in with what you said. You see them at the activities. I don't mean during the workday, but I'm talking about at the events. And those students are connecting with them, and they're thinking in their mind, this person cares. So when you pull him or her and they see you, they can't accuse you of not caring, or you don't care, because they see them there. And I want to commend you on that. You supporting your school function, whatever it is, and that's a plus to a win. All right?
I'll do last, I'll do last if we've got any time left. Y'all go ahead, because I can still do mine under board member report.
All right, Mrs. Wagner?
Just one question, because I see the list of all the strategies that are in place. Are all of, like, how new are those? Have they all been implemented for the last year or two, or?
The ripple effects was, that was 5 years ago
Okay.
that we had. The Jarvis Williams he had contacted the superintendent. Me and Ms. Drew met with him a couple of times about what he wanted to do, and we kind of wanted to put him where the need was. The Navigate 360 just came through today, that
So
we
this
just
is kind
finally
of-
negotiated with them. They had it at Placa High School the year before, but Miss Orster had created the mentor, which is really helping. And so with that, we decided that we would put it in the ISS and Solutions, not just a whole school, and we just worked a deal out with Navigate 360, a pilot-type system. We are paying some, but was a pilot-type situation,
So this
so
is-
majority of that stuff.
So this is kind of an overview of what you've been doing and as you're adding things and,
Yes,
and
yes, ma'am.
Yes.
using
Yeah.
what's
Yes, ma'am.
working?
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep in mind also that all of our teachers receive youth mental health first aid training or awareness training, and that's a requirement, and it does help with kids that have experienced trauma and how to react to their behaviors.
Alrighty.
Okay,
My turn.
all right. Mr.
Thank you,
Leary?
Madam Chairman. So, you know, what started all this for me was the email that I received and you all received from Ms. Weaver, like a high school before Christmas. And it started a journey for me to meet with the principals and meet with the school resource officers and Colonel Wells and Major Rose and Lieutenant, anyway, they're here, the two. And then I invited them to be here today, in addition to Ms. Goddard, Shondell Goddard from Representative Payne's office, because this is a huge issue for us. And, you know, I clearly support us finding a way to move the kids that are in the solutions classes out of the main body and off campus into another facility, and for us to come up with some type of program that's more directly related to our ability to help them. And I know it costs money, and I know that, you know, that it was done several years ago, maybe even longer than that. But I can tell you that, you know, I was absolutely shocked at some of the things that I heard that these kids do, and also absolutely shocked that if a student commits a felony off campus, nothing to do with the school, they're put on probation, or they, you know, are adjudicated in some way, not guilty, but, you know, no la contendere, whatever. We cannot let them come back. We have to let them come back to school. So we've got convicted felons in our high school campuses. Now, maybe this is the way it is across the state, but I can tell you that I was shocked at that. Not just because I have a granddaughter there, but overall, it was, for me as a new school board member, it was very eye-opening. So, you know, I think we need another workshop. I think we need a board. We need to find a way. I mean, that's the bottom line for me.
Mr. Leary, I can speak to that, to just let you know one thing, that the schools all have a resource to do that. It comes down through a behavior threat management assessment that they do. So when they get those felony charges, and I get them also. Mr. Weaver gets them. So when they have that, it's switched to a threat management model from the state of Florida, and it's a committee of people at the school that would make a decision, okay? And that decision would be where they sit and talk about the threat, what that child did. And I've been in meetings with majority of these principals before, where they've talked about ideas that they come up with this threat management model. If it's a threat, like you're talking about, the student has committed something outside, but we, as our public school, they do get to still come to school. And you put in a safety plan where that child may be in a solution center. And all three principals have done a great job of putting those people where they do ride the bus. That is correct. They do ride the bus. But once they get to school, they're isolated in one area, and then they're escorted to the solution center, and then from there they're escorted to lunch, where they're not in the main body actually going from campus together. We've had a few incidents where they have opened defiance and gone and done some act, physical harm to someone, but majority of the time when they're in solutions, that's where those expulsion dates come up, and those expulsion, we do put them up for expulsion because of some of the acts that they have committed. But
Wouldn't
that,
it
just
be-
want to let you know, there is
Yeah, I understand
some
that,
procedures in there in place that we
I
do.
Like the other board members, I give 110% credit to the administration and the school principals and their staff. Y'all are doing everything you can do, honestly. But, we need those kids out of the main body. And, it's not as big a problem as Crescent City. I've talked to Tim, and, he thinks he can handle it. So in Larkin Palaca High School, and, it would show our teachers, hey, we're trying to protect you as well as the kids, and, make for a better learning environment for those kids. So anyway, and I will be talking to my friends in the legislature as soon as session's over. And, there is no way that somebody's committed a felony. I don't care what, that they should be allowed back in a public school environment campus. My opinion.
Okay, all
Real-
right, and we.
Real quick,
Mr.
Tim,
Buckles.
Tim does have a real good advantage in that he's worked with his kids since they were little and on up to high school age. So that makes a difference, but Phil, it was probably in '79 when the state funded alternative classes in schools. And I was called to leave private school and come to the school district to run one out at Price Middle School. Then the next year, we had a district alternative class, and I did that at the upstairs of the Campbell Building at the school board office, first one they ever had. But, you know, I looked at figures the other day, and it's close to $1 million to just fund one class. But things have changed. The roof blew off the Putnam Academy Center over in East Black around 2008. But anyway, I'll finish my comments later on. But you're right, we need the legislature to look at some things. We've got problems.
Okay, and due to the time, we're gonna have to call it, but we're gonna ask Superintendent Cerency if you will work with the principals, set up our next stage 2, and where we go from here. And in the meantime, Mr. Leary, you work on the things that you mentioned, those in the legislature. Due to the time, and they do have to get set up for our board meeting at 3:30. So with that, thank you all from the Sheriff's Department, and we'll